Hi, my name's Riley Windham, and for my seminar observational study, I will be attempting to improve my reading comprehension skills. The reason I chose this skill is because I'm going into environmental science, and although that doesn't really sound like something that would require a lot of reading, when you think of all the research that needs to go into land use, endangered species, the type of land you're on, it all starts to pile up. And my dad's in a similar field, and I've seen him go through page after page after page of stuff he can and can't do when on land that he's working with. So according to research, including your reading comprehension skills is actually really easy. The four main things you need to do are summarize, write it down, study unknown vocab, and reread. I purposely did not reread my articles because I thought I would get a better reading on whether or not I was improving or not. I really just want to improve this skill as I think it'll really benefit me and also give me an insight into the type of work I'll be doing when I actually go into this field. So now I'll get into the steps I took to complete my study, my assessment and findings, what I learned, and some problems that I had with my study. So the steps I took to complete my study were: number 1, finding articles using library resources with the goal of finding articles in the environmental science area. Number 2, I plan to read more every day, up to 2 articles a day, as my skills progressed. Spoiler alert, I never read a second article. Number 3, take notes. This would include vocabulary and concepts I didn't understand. For example, there were a lot of technology and science terms and concepts that I didn't really get. Number 4, write down 3 questions about every article I read. Number 5, attempt to answer my questions through research. For example, one of my articles were about fisheries, and I really didn't know how fisheries worked, so I had to research that. Number 6, at the end of the day, I would create a list and attempt to recite and summarize what I had learned for my daily recordings. For my assessment, I asked myself questions that would prove whether or not my reading comprehension skills were improving. These questions included: was I able to read more than one article without experiencing reading fatigue? Did I have less questions about the article than the previous day? When reciting information learned, did I stumble over the information more or less? Was I more knowledgeable about the terms in the article than the day before? And overall, do I feel that I am getting better at reading comprehension? In order to summarize the findings of the study, I found themes throughout my transcribed audio recordings that I completed at the end of each day that summarized that day's findings. These themes found consistencies within my recordings and helped me to determine my findings. The main themes included fatigue, confusion, forgetfulness, interest, ineffectiveness, effectiveness, speed, and stuttering. So some problems I had with my study was that it was really difficult to gauge how difficult an article was going to be without pre-reading it. And since I was trying to improve my skill, I wasn't going to pre-read an article before the actual study. And since it wasn't every day the article was getting harder as my skill was getting better, it was hard to keep on track. For example, day 3 was the hardest article I read that entire week. Day 2 was easy, and day 4 was easy. So I couldn't really gauge how much I was improving because I didn't understand day 3 at all, but I understood day 2 completely. So it was hard to find level ground with that. Also, part of my study was to try and stop being so fatigued as I read and to read as many articles as I could. And I could never read more than one, and the problem I mentioned before is one of the reasons. Day 3, I should have been reading 2 articles, but since it was so difficult, I couldn't. If I were to do this study again, I don't think I'd base it around my field of study, environmental science, because it just made it really difficult to find articles that were in my reading level. I think if I were just some rando trying to improve my reading comprehension, I'd go online and find textbooks of the same subject that vary in reading difficulty. So say you find a 6th grade textbook over government, you read that one day, the next day you read a 7th grade book. 8th grade, ninth grade, and so forth. And over time, your understanding of the subject as well as your ability to read the subject without struggle is going to improve. And you could do that with any subject at all. And honestly, that would probably also improve your everyday reading as well. So let's talk about what I learned. This project definitely has some real-world application, and it's definitely shown me that I'm not going to die if I have to read textbooks for class or have to do research for a project. I also learned that skills like this can be improved. I never thought I would enjoy reading an article that was outside of, like, say, the fantasy realm, which is what I enjoy in daily reading. This really introduced me to subjects that I had never encountered before, even inside my field. And it definitely exposed me to things that I didn't know that I'd be interested when it came to environmental science. And it also showed me what I definitely was not interested in. So the major takeaway of this is that I've got some really good exposure to things in my field that I wouldn't have had otherwise. This study was a great way to end my school year and get me prepared for the coming years of college, where I'm going to have to work much harder than I did my freshman year. To conclude, always take the chance to improve life skills because you're definitely going to need them.